Okay, just a quick bit of housekeeping before we move on. When you're in these fields, other conventions around the interface apply. For example, if you were rotating something in the viewport, you could hit escape and get out of it. So if I entered a value of 5 in there, I can hit escape to get out of that. Another convention that applies is if I have 10 in there and I hit the right mouse button, it will also escape out of there. Just like when you're in the viewport and you hit grab and right mouse button, it lets it go and escapes or cancels out of it. If you grab and then left click, it puts it there, right? So that also holds true. So if we wanted to move this on the Z by 2 and enter that, I can also left click, but I have to left click outside of it in the next one or anywhere outside of it and it would take it. Okay, so let's do that again, demonstrate that. So click 5 so we can see it a little bit better, and I'm going to left click and then there it went. I left clicked over here in the viewport and it took it. So I could also hit 10, or let's hit 0.5, and then I'm going to left click in the next field, and of course it took it. It went back down to there. Okay, so that's a little bit of convention to be aware of that works. Okay, so the next thing is to be aware of the fact that when you're manipulating objects in the channel box, you're manipulating them always from its own center, its own object center. These little dots in the middle signify where the center is. Right, so let me clear out this position, make sure there's no rotation scale on there, right? Okay, so when you're using the channel box and you rotate, it's always rotating on the center, and it's regardless of where this pivot point is set. So I have it set to 3D cursor, but let's move the box over here. Now if I rotate it like that, then of course I'm rotating it and I'm moving it, right? So to sort of illustrate that, let's say if we set this to individual origin, to achieve the same thing, I could move it like this and like that, and then rotate it like that. And that would achieve basically the same thing as the 3D cursor version, which is rotating it like that. But this is a little bit more precise if that's what you need. But it's good to know that these values here change in both location and rotation when you're rotating off of somewhere away from its pivot. So that's good to know for a couple of reasons. For one, when you're in 3D cursor and it's over here, when you try to add a rotation value, it won't add it from the 3D cursor. It's adding it from here, right? So that's one thing to be aware of. Another thing to be aware of is you might say, okay, I'm going to rotate it up to here and Control R. Oh, well, you see it just cleared out the rotation the same way as if I went over here and just cleared out the rotation there. Now maybe that's super obvious to some people, but you might find a situation where that confuses you because you've been rotating from over here and you want to clear out that rotation. Well, it seems kind of logical, right? That, well, gee, I rotated it like this, and now I want to clear out that rotation, and then it doesn't do it. So you can kind of find yourself getting in the trouble there. So this has a very specific use, and it doesn't really relate to these pivot points, and so just be aware of that. And there might be cases where you do want it to stay where it was but just clear out the rotation. So if you get into a situation, let's say I wanted to put it back where it was, I would have to go, let's say if I was rotating it up to there, I'd have to go clear rotation and position. Of course it would put it back to there, but if I knew where that location was, I could just slide it back over there. Unfortunately, there's no way to get it back to there automatically other than the undo command, although that might not be an option for you. So good to be aware of, because you might be in a situation where you need to find other workarounds, which there would be. So that'll be enough for this video, and then we've got more to cover in the next.